I've been using this lovely TT Artisan set of lenses for a little while now. I went to Amsterdam and I've been to Blackpool and I've been out and about with them, and here is my review. I'll talk about some of the similarities of all three lenses and then get into them individually, and if you want to learn more about any of these products, all the links are in the description. And I should add, even as a set, they're super affordable. You'll be surprised at the quality versus price of this setup. So they're all manual focus lenses with no electronic elements going to the camera. And one of my favourite design elements for this lens set is the aperture ring is placed towards the very front of the lens. Now I cannot tell you how many times when I've been using manual lenses, when the aperture is close to the camera body, how often I knock it and how annoying the whole thing is. So this is an absolute revelation. The aperture rings are all clicky, so it's not great for video, but wonderful for photo, and that's what the TT Artisan's lens sets are all designed for. They are photography lenses primarily. I have to say, I think the design of all of these lenses is blooming gorgeous and also practical as well. I've found that I get a lot more keeper shots using this setup with manual focusing compared to other manual lenses because of where the aperture ring is, and also because the focus ring is just delightful also. Even more fun, the lens hoods are metal and screw on, so very high quality and just a little bit quirky. I guess it's a little bit Marmite because you can't take them on and off very quickly, but I think it's a lovely addition. And some of the lens caps for these lenses are also screw on and metal, so very, very robust all round. So let's look at each of these lenses individually. First of all, let's start with the 17mm f1.4. Now, going into this, I thought that this would be my favourite lens of the set because it's a focal length that I quite enjoy. I'm shooting on the Olympus 17mm right now, and I was actually surprised that another lens in this set stole my heart, which I'll get to later. Now at 1.4, this lens and all of the lenses in this set are a little bit soft, and given the price point I think that's to be expected, and I think it's not really detrimental so long as your subject is sort of in the centre of the frame as you would expect. Where it does struggle a little bit is if you're using your wider apertures to let in more light in low light conditions, which can lead to slightly soft images in lower light, though I still think I got some good lower light images, even though it's not as clinically sharp as some other lenses I've used. There's a little bit of chromatic aberration and a little bit of purple fringing, and in some shots, frankly, a lot of both. But it's very easy to sort out in editing, or you can just stop down a little bit. Stop down a little bit as a walkabout lens for street photography and looking around cities, I think the 17mm is ideal. One thing I wasn't overly fond of with this lens was how it deals with flares. I feel like it's a very fragmented kind of look, probably because of all the elements of glass in this lens, and it's not the most pleasing lens I've ever used for flares. So while this lens isn't the most clinically sharp, I do think it has a lot of character, and I did really enjoy the results from this lens and the other ones as well. They're all quite similar in the sense that, you know, if you're looking for a clinical, perfectly sharp lens, these aren't it. But you wouldn't expect them to be for this price point. I think if you're looking for something that's fun and creative and very aesthetically pleasing and very small, I think we're onto a winner with this set. Next up is the 35mm f1.4. Also a very sexy looking lens, and I will add that this whole set is available also in silver, which is even prettier in my opinion, but I went with the black set. I find it very hard to believe, given the results of this lens, that the 35mm is actually the cheapest of all three, and it's under, sometimes significantly under $100, and for what you get, I think that's blooming awesome. As a walkabout lens, despite it being slightly longer than what I would usually gravitate towards, I found it really fun to use. You can get lots of separation with your subject, and it was just joyful all the way through, testing this whole set in fact. You know my reviews are a little bit more art than science. I didn't find any of these lenses frustrating anyway. I found that you could swap and change between the focal lengths, and using them as a set I think is really good. Individually they each have the best benefit, but as a set I think they are also lovely as well. There's a little bit of blooming at 1.4, as you would expect from this price point, particularly with this one being the cheapest lens. But if you stop down or just make sure your focus is nailed, then you can still use these shots. They're still usable, but it is much sharper once you get sort of f2.8 and narrower. And finally, the 50mm f1.2. The lens that surprisingly stole my heart. I was expecting to use this one the least because it's quite an unwieldy sort of focal length on Micro Four Thirds, but it's absolutely stunning. I found it surprisingly good for street photography and for just sort of holiday photos. And I also found that the separation that you get and the sort of 3D element that this lens gives you is absolutely gorgeous. And you know, it might just be the focal length, it might just be the aperture, probably is, but to my eyes these images have a great sense of depth that some other lenses don't often portray, and I thought for this price point that was really interesting and pleasing. I have to say the bokeh on this lens in particular of the set is gorgeous. I just think it's just so shallow and beautiful, and the bokeh balls are lovely rendered, and I had loads of fun playing with the shallower depth of field with this lens. And at 1.2, regardless of how clinically usable the 1.2 element is, look how much light you get into this lens. It's a feat of engineering. I think it's beautiful. When you're in less tricky lighting situations, 1.2 is absolutely fine to use. It's just when things get a little bit bright that you do get a little bit of blooming into your photography. I think this is a really affordable and fun portrait lens, as well as for other things. I mean, I used mostly for sort of street photography in this review, but it would be good for a many number of applications. So if any one of these lenses caught your eye, do check out the information in the description below, but also consider them as a set. The focal lengths that are on offer are just, you know, you cover a lot of bases with these focal lengths, and they're very affordable. So maybe a gift for a fellow Micro Four nerd, or a gift to yourself, because you deserve it. My light went off, but seriously, you deserve it. Can someone just buy me some mains powered lights? This happens so often. So which one do you think performed the best? Personally, I think the best one is the 50mm, but I think they all have strengths and weaknesses. Let me know in the comments below what you think. And do check out the set if you fancy a little bargain. And can I just say, how cool is it that we can get all of these lenses at such a great attractive price point on your Micro Four Thirds system? I mean, it's one of the main reasons I love this system. You know, you can use it for professional work, but you can also use it for any number of creative outlets. If you like this video and want to see some more vintagey lens goodness, then watch this one next.